Welcome to the Jada Willis Experience. We're here to help CEOs, entrepreneurs, and founders build businesses and their teams without sacrificing themselves.
Welcome to the Jada Willis Experience. I mean, to say I'm excited is a complete understatement because I think I'm interviewing the Oprah of referrals right now. Someone's called her it. I mean, today it started for sure. It's going to go viral. Don't worry. She is a Head Referral Ninja Master. I'm welcoming Stacey Brown Randall. Welcome to the Jada Willis Experience.
Okay, I have never been used in the same sentence as Oprah. So I appreciate that more than you know. And I'm going to make sure my children know that that is actually how awesome and cool someone thought I was today. Because, you know, they don't think that at all, ever.
Starts actually, today. I think our listeners will say that by the end of the podcast as well.
Oh, I certainly hope so. It's funny. I say that. I don't even know if my kids know who Oprah is. But regardless, I'll make sure they know. It's like calling me the Beyonce of referrals, right? Yes.
That was way okay. I would like to edit this at the end. Please strike the record. Not Oprah, Beyonce of referrals. So, all right. So let's share with the audience, the listeners. So just tell us about yourself.
Yeah, you know, that's a total loaded question because, you know, there's so many ways that I could take that. So I was born, I'm just kidding. So, you know, I think for your listeners, the number one thing they need to know about me to understand any of the stuff we're going to dig into when it comes to referrals and our conversation today, the number one thing they need to understand is kind of like the why I do what I do. And that is because I'm a card-carrying member of the Business Failure Club. And everything that I do now in this business, my second business, came from some very painful and hard lessons that I had with my first business. And it failed. It did not quite make it to the 5-year mark. Failed after 4 years. I had to go back to corporate America, which is really hard when you've tasted entrepreneurial freedom.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, it was so hard. And you're going to love this. It was an HR consulting firm.
Oh man, I wish we knew each other.
It's crazy. I actually did generational diversity and employee engagement. Okay. And I had if you and I were having coffee and it was back in the day and I was telling you about my HR consulting firm, you would hear me say things like, yeah, I've got KPMG and Ally Bank and BDO as my clients. I've been interviewed by Bloomberg News and I've had articles published in all these publications. And you'd be like, wow, she is rocking it out. And then I would walk away and be like, and my business is failing. That would be the deep secret. And the truth is, it actually doesn't matter. And I know every business owner listening is like, amen. It doesn't really matter how great you are at your area of expertise. It doesn't really matter how great I was and how much KPMG loved my generational diversity or employee engagement stuff. It didn't really matter if I couldn't constantly bring in clients. And that was the thing I never quite figured out with my first business. So back to corporate America, was like, I got to get out of here. About 15, 16 months later, I made my exit. I had been certified as a productivity coach while I was in corporate America. I started that, planted that flag as my second business, productivity and business coaching. Because, who better to coach you than someone who's failed, right? That makes all the sense in the world. Actually, it was a secret weapon because I could see it in other businesses. I wouldn't have known that until I started coaching other small business owners. But I was like, okay, I cannot be a 2-time card-carrying member. I do not need 2 memberships in the Business Failure Club. I got to figure out how to make this business successful. And I started paying attention to the things I knew that had not gone well or right. And pipeline development, filling the pipeline with prospects was at the top of the list. And I was like, okay, we're going to figure this out. And I was like, wait, I just want to get some referrals. That will make my life so much easier. I'm sure I got referrals with my consulting firm. No, I did not. I got that many. Big fat 0.
Okay.
I got none. I was like, well, obviously I don't know anything about referrals. So let me go learn. And then I got everybody who goes to Google or a sales training or reads a book back in the day on referrals, you got hit with referrals are easy. Just go ask everybody, including your mama, to refer you all the time. And here's who to ask, when to ask, how often to ask. Here's what to say. And here's how to push through knowing you're being annoying and awkward and uncomfortable. It was the advice. I was like, you've got to be kidding. It was like telling you, just go do a whole bunch of cold calling and you'll be fine. And we all know that's not true, right? Yeah.
It's not true.
It's not true. And so I was like, well, there's got to be a better way. And I didn't know the better way, right? I just knew I didn't want to do the asking or the incentivizing or the networking to know a ton of people. I mean, I have 3 kids, and back then they were small. And so it was just one of those things. It was like, no, I got to figure this out. And so I'll be honest, I was throwing spaghetti on the wall. It was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to make this business successful. And I did some of the tried and true methods that I knew would work for me, like networking, which is what I had only done with my first business. I started that way because that's how I knew to get clients, and it worked. But I remembered I was about 3 months in and I started to get referrals. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is amazing. What am I doing? Who are they coming from? How is it happening? And I just started paying attention and started reverse engineering stuff. And in my first year, I got 112 referrals that I didn't ask for.
Great.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then my small business clients were like, hey, Stacey, you're a great productivity coach. We really appreciate you teaching us to tame our inbox, but we'd rather learn how you're growing your business so fast. And I was like, oh, with referrals. And they're like, great, teach us. And that just kind of set me on this path. Here I am 10 years later, set me on this path of like teaching business owners how to generate referrals. And we call it naturally. So you're not doing the things that involve manipulation or incentivizing or asking.
Yeah, it doesn't feel gross.
Oh my gosh. Correct.
It doesn't feel gross. Whenever I said, and I introduced you and I said I was so excited, it's because first off, I love sales and business development, but I've been in HR for 20 years. So how I was able to grow my HR firm was through sales, but it's also through what we talked about a little bit before we started is the process, right? The strategies and also the close. I love the close. It's the thrill of the close for me, but it's also easier whenever you really believe in the thing that you're talking about. And so I really want to dig in and just learn more about your strategy. I mean, I didn't know you. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that I didn't know you even 3 years ago. We could have just exploded the HR field. But share some of your strategies, if you will, that you can kind of teach your clients about.
Yeah. So I think that always have to keep in mind who our clients are. So my ideal clients are small business owners. I love them, right? The reality of it is, though, there's like, whether they are or whether they're not, they believe they are the busiest humans on the planet.
Yes.
So I typically start, depending on who I'm working with and how I'm working with them, I typically start with trying to identify their low-hanging fruit, because I know there's a few strategies that I teach. So I would say some of my strategies fall into like foundational, like everybody's got to have 1, 2, or all 3 of these foundational strategies. And I'll go through them in just a minute. And then on top of that, there may be some additional strategies, but really everything else is about refinement of results and making sure you've got the metrics and the right outcomes and the right closing ratio and the right quality and all that kind of stuff. So we look at, when somebody comes to work with us, we look at, okay, we know we're going to do all these things. I mean, we teach 18 strategies after next week, rolling out our 19th, right? We are going to teach all the things to this person, not on day 1. They're going to have 12 months to implement. But I know to get them committed and to get them to like do the work, because I don't have an easy button, I have to get them a quick win. It's also how they mentally tell themselves, oh, it's a return on investment, right? We all do that. That's totally normal. I do that when I buy things too.
Right.
And so I always look for that low-hanging fruit. Well, the truth is, the easiest way to get referrals is to identify who's already been referring you and start cultivating a different relationship, usually a relationship, unless you've been ignoring your people. Typically, it's a continuation of the relationship you have, but we just do a few things different, and we use very specific language as we're cultivating that relationship. And from there, usually, because the easiest way, right, is like, hey, I've been referring you, more than likely, unless we've been falling out, I'm going to continue to refer you. And so that's where we start. I mean, now some people come to me and they're like, I don't have any referral sources. Well, their quick win is going to take a little bit longer, but I've got to teach them how to develop somebody, that client that loves them, that center of influence that they wish would refer them. I got to teach them how to get them to start referring them. And it works, right? I mean, we kind of watch it go through. It takes a little bit longer than if you have referral sources, but getting that quick win of like seeing the progress is typically where I start with folks, because I want them to commit to doing everything they need to build their referable business. And it doesn't all start in one, like we just don't do it all in 30 days and then you've got it. But it is that identification. Do you have referral sources? And if you have many, let's focus on them. And if you don't, let's teach you how to actually cultivate new people and to start referring you. And that's typically where we start with that foundational piece. But then, of course, there's so much more we can layer on depending on the business owner and their needs.
Interesting. Do you also customize, and this is more of a curiosity piece, to the personality? Like, I hear a lot about, introverts, and they're like, I'm in a sales role or even CEO, but I'm also responsible for sales, and I don't want to talk to people. So just tell me about that.
But you're doing a lovely job talking with me.
No, I'm not an introvert.
I know. I'm totally kidding. I was like, could anyone actually think that you were? Like, that would be crazy.
Sometimes it's
you never know, right? Here's the thing. We don't focus the strategies on like, do this if you're an introvert, do this if you're an extrovert. But everything we teach comes with some foundational principles of making sure that what you do is authentic to you. Right. It's what you do needs to actually be all about the referral source. Like, what do they need? Like, what does that look like? We call them our platinum principles, but like, what does the referral source need? And people get this wrong all the time. They're like, well, they need to know who I work with and the best type of referrals. I'm like, no, they don't. They need to know that you care. There's a big difference in those two things. But then also, like, what is your personality in terms of what are you comfortable with? From being authentic is a big piece of what we do. And most of the time people are like, well, I need people to know what I do so they can refer me. I'm like, no, actually, they just really, when people are all like, what? And I'm like, this is what the science shows. What people need to refer you is to know that you care about them and that you don't ignore them and that you are thankful and grateful. You are filled with a sense of, being authentic and gratitude, and that you don't take for granted the fact that they put their reputation on the line every time they refer to you, and you appreciate that and you nurture that relationship because you value it. And I know it sounds like, well, duh, but you would be surprised how many people don't act that way. They think it, but it's like I tell my kids, I was like, your intentions mean nothing if there's no action behind them. Like, I think it's great you intended to put your book bag away. Right. That doesn't actually mean crap if it's still sitting on the floor in the kitchen. Like the intention doesn't matter. And I have people say that all the time. What's the intention that counts? I'm like, no, it doesn't. Action counts. And, I always tell, like, these are the people that care about your business and send people to you. Most of the time when people think about it like that, they're like, oh yeah, I should probably do something. And that's where I know I've got somebody who's going to come at this from a genuine perspective. And then what we do, I mean, we have this whole like proprietary 4-part framework of how we teach the what you'll do so that you're comfortable with everything you do, because we infuse a ton of variety and options because we know everybody's not the same. I mean, the question about personality came up a lot in the very beginning. I don't hear it as much now as I used to. But you meet me and you're like, okay, you're an extrovert and you got a lot of energy and you talk super fast. Like, I'm nothing like you. Right. And they're like, but I'm nothing like you, Stacey. And in the very beginning, like 10 years ago, I used to say, I don't know, is it me? Like, am I just amazing? Like, am I just the one who can make these referrals happen? Or is it the fact that I'm a business coach and that works? And so the first 2 people I taught it to was an attorney, introvert, and a financial advisor, introvert. And they had awesome success. And I was like, yep, nope, it's not based on my personality. And then we started paying attention to why is that? And then we started paying attention to like all the science and all the things that happen behind it.
I think that's the thing that I most appreciate about you is the fact that it's a very thoughtful approach. It's not just, hey, it's not the high energy. It's not even the fact that, your energy is contagious. And so it is something where even if apparently you have a personality that's like dry as paint, you can also use the system and it's scientifically proven and or supported. And, you put the processes in place that you've now tested the market and really you're doing well. And so honestly, how I've even, come to know about you is the fact that my business coach, being a part of Vistage, my business coach was like, I want to talk to Stacey. And I'm like, wait, I want to talk to Stacey. And so you're sweeping South Carolina right now. And so don't expect a few more calls.
That's my home state.
Well, there you go. Just bring it back home. Bring it back home.
I know. I mean, I'm in North Carolina now, but I was born and raised in Greenville.
Very good. The thing that I also appreciate, I wish everyone can underline and bold, is the fact that folks want to feel valued. And everyone, even business owners and everyone else, we're all busy, and you can get into the whys of why you're busy, whatever that is, but we're all busy and it just feels good. It's kind of like the folks that go back to, like Chick-fil-A and the level of customer service, but it feels good to have that human interaction. That's also, it also feels genuine. And we have to treat other humans and build that authentic connection and relationship. That's just my opinion on it. And it's just, that's actually going to cultivate the level of value. But I want to know this, and it's okay if you have to say, Jada, that's stupid. I don't know how that worked for you, but don't do this. But I was early on in starting the business. I was a part of a networking group, and I was only in this networking group for a year. But what it taught me was to build my referral team. So it just means who are the folks that also have my clients, but they do a completely different service. So we could actually offer a complimentary service. So even whenever I left that, that networking group, I had the 5 people in different industries. So for me, it's like benefits partners, payroll, so on and so forth. But I also, and it was a very real relationship. It wasn't just, it wasn't transactional. It was about, I wanted to find other partners that cared and took care of their clients and had similar values whenever it comes to doing business. And then I loved on those folks. I mean, I took them to dinner. I definitely sent them gifts for their birthday. I'm telling you, loved on and vice versa. So, okay, rip it apart. Just tell me.
There's nothing to rip apart. It's actually one of the strategies that we teach. We actually teach that there are 4 types of referral sources. And the one that you mentioned is what we would refer to as COIs, or centers of influence. But they're specific. Like, everybody hears like, oh, centers of influence can refer me. I'm like, that's not everybody in your phone. That's not everybody you know on LinkedIn. That's not everybody that you even meet at a networking event. It's like a subset of those folks. And for different industries, it's going to be a different number. And there's no perfect number. Everybody wants to know, what's the ideal number of referral sources? I'm like, whatever the number is, it's to get you the referrals you need every year, depending on how many referrals they give you in a year. But it's that idea that, like, yes, those centers of influence, and by very definition of a center of influence is somebody who knows what you do, doesn't do what you do, so there's no competitive overlap, but comes across your ideal client with some level of regularity to be able to refer to you. So it fits in exactly with what you how you looked at it from your partner's perspective. We look at it just from a terminology where, like, okay, if you've referred, you're a referral source, but you may be a client that is a referral source, past or present, right? Or you may be a center of influence that is a referral source. You may be a family or friend, or you may actually be a stranger. That's the 4th one that can be a referral source, which sounds crazy because most people are like, wait, you just said referrals come from relationships. How can a stranger refer you? And typically they're a stranger to you, but they know who you are, at least enough to be confident to actually refer to you. Lots of people will never have a stranger refer them. But some people will. And like, this is just a pro tip. Let me just say, you ever have somebody refer to you and you don't know who that person is, make it your business to meet that person or get to know that person. Google stalk them if you have to figure out who they are and why they referred you. When I was a productivity coach, every once in a while I got referred people and they kept using like the same therapist name. And I was like, I don't know any therapists. I mean, I probably should, but I don't know any therapists. Like, I don't know who this is. And so I just Google stalked her. And then I reached out, and it's not like we needed to become the best of friends, but I needed to say thank you. Right. And I needed her and I needed to know why. And it turns out she did coaching with ADHD. And at some level with her business owner clients that were there for her for ADHD, she knew they needed another level. This was back when I was a productivity coach, to do some of that like business stuff that comes into productivity, not just the managing and strategies around the ADHD. So without even knowing it, I don't know. She said she doesn't remember how she heard about me, but she knows she heard about me from someone else. Like maybe a client had a great experience with me and mentioned me. And so there was a while that she referred people to me until I stopped doing productivity coaching. But the reality of it is that knowing who your referral sources are and then knowing like what we call their category, right? Like from that perspective of like, well, really it's their type. Categories that they're a referral source, but their type, is it a client, COI, family, a friend, or stranger? That tells you so much about who has the greatest potential to refer you as you move forward and develop new ones too.
Oh my goodness. There's so many good good nuggets here. And also you're helping me reflect on like, I left so much meat on the bone. Ooh. I was like, yeah.
It happens.
If I only knew you when. Okay.
Only. If
okay.
only, I know.
We have our entire future, okay, ahead of us. And originally I thought you were talking about whenever I would, meet people in an airport and always walk away with, a lead or something of that nature. Because
wait, hold on, time out. So you meet people in an airport and walk away with a lead. There's a name for you. Unicorn. Most people don't just meet somebody at an airport and walk away with a lead. I know.
Really?
So that's impressive.
Okay, yeah, and I'm also thinking about, I'm adding this in, don't worry, this is actually going to be totally played as well, is that I'm thinking about also recording a podcast with a random stranger. I travel a lot, and so I meet a lot of people in airports and build connections and like get phone numbers. Yeah, so I mean, interviewing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just thought that I just have a sales spirit, and so it's really just have a genuine interest in meeting new people. What's their story? That sort of thing.
But the interesting thing is most folks aren't like that. And so when I find that I'm working with folks, a lot of times they became a business owner because they're really good at the XYZ. They're an amazing HR consultant. They're an amazing attorney. They're an amazing interior designer, right? Like they're really good at whatever the XYZ is. And then along the way in their first year, they're like, oh crap, I actually have to be good at a business owner, which means I just picked up 5 more hats, from accounting and, operations and sales. And they're like, oh, and so for a lot of folks, when they come to me, they're like, just help me grow without making it feel like sales. Most people
love it.
Like you, right? That have like this sales like spirit. I just can't wait to do it. Most people are like, just make it work, but don't make it feel like sales, make it feel good. And that's what we focus on. I mean, there's still work to do, right? But I would rather do this than anything else in terms of like generating referrals for my business. But the idea there is that most people, when they think about generating referrals, they naturally go to a place of, that would be amazing. That would feel amazing. That would be amazing. I would love to grow by referrals. And we love everything about the idea of referrals. But unfortunately, the strategies we've been taught for decades, pardon my French, suck. And so like, why is this amazing thing called referrals then so awful when how we're trying to generate them? And so it's interesting. Most people aren't like you, though. You are definitely a unicorn. But I think a podcast episode with a random stranger would be pretty amazing.
Thank you. I wanted that. But here's the thing, and that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to reach out and have this conversation. A, selfish, because this is totally my zone of genius. But B, I know that the rest of the world, well, usually they don't enjoy sales. Like when you say the word, there's a stigma attached to it. And I know a lot of solopreneurs or HR consultants that are trying to build, and they're like, listen, I'm not doing this cold calling crap. They don't even like the networking piece of it. And so that's an interesting problem to have, because in order to really usually get sales, you do have to talk to people. That is a bare minimum. But, if you go through other sales training, they're going to teach you, and I'm not a big fan actually of the standard sales training. And it's like, how many touch points and what's that closing verbiage? But it feels like so much pressure. And I'm the complete opposite. How are you with your clients, and how do you teach them on more of that closing? And does it, like, I don't want it to feel weird.
Yeah. So, there's a lot when we talk about everything gets to be different and usually easier when we're talking about referrals. So a referred prospect will always be easier to close. Doesn't mean you're going to have 100% hit ratio, right? But it's typically easier to close than a non-referred prospect, right? But there's, varying levels to what that looks like. A cold call obviously will probably be your hardest thing to close, right? If that's on one end of the spectrum, all the way to a referred prospect who knows they have the pain, needs to solve it right now, and was like, oh my gosh, Jada, just take my money. Make this problem go away, right? There's a big range of a lot of different tactics in between those two sides of the spectrum. And we always look at it with a referred prospect is it's paying attention to how they show up, right? A referred prospect, by definition, the way we define a referral, you have to have been personally connected by the referral source to the prospect. So there's typically, not always, but typically this is going to be done over email. And the referral source is going to send an email and copy you and the prospect. And then the other thing that they're going to do is they're actually going to talk about the need of the prospect. You won't hear things like, hey, you two should meet each other because it'd be great synergy and happy connecting. And right, one great person needs to know another great person. That's an introduction. That's not a referral. If there's a need addressed, hey, Stacey, I'm referring Sam to you because we were talking the other day and he needs more referrals and you're the only person I would tell him to go to, right? Like that is Sam's got a problem. Stacey can solve it, right? And so that connection is being made by whomever that referral source is. And ultimately that referred prospect is already showing up differently because they have a need identified. They already trust you because they've been connected. And which means, and this is what people sometimes overlook, when a prospect is willing to be connected to you, not only do they trust you because they trust the person who's connecting you, but they also recognize, yes, they have a problem, but actually it's one they're considering solving. Because if they weren't going to solve it, why in the world are they going to show up to a meeting or to a Zoom call or whatever it is? So they wouldn't want to be connected. Nobody wants to be connected with someone doing sales if they don't actually want to talk about that, solving that problem. So everything about a referred prospect is just different. And I think people overlook that. You should have a different sales process. You should pay attention to that when you have referred prospects. That should just be different from somebody you meet, in your case, like at an airport. So it should just be a different process, but you should know what those processes are.
There is so much that I want to ask you. And this is just, it really could go on, and I would totally pick your brain for hours upon end. But I want you to leave the listeners, the viewers with, like, what's your major piece of advice? If you just had to give a statement, last hurrah to someone, small business owner, founders, CEOs, what would you really tell them right now?
I think one thing that people need to understand about referrals, no matter how you decide to generate them, but in particular, if you decide to learn from me, that if you do great work, you absolutely deserve referrals, but you are not owed them. So you need to be prepared to do the work, to put the strategies in place, to put the processes in place. If it's just you, making sure you follow them. If you've got a team, making sure the team follows them. If you've got salespeople, making sure they understand the different strategies and processes and procedures that they need to follow. Because referrals are amazing. They are so very amazing to have. Like before you and I got on, I was talking to an attorney who was referred to me, and it'll be so much easier to work with him and get him to say yes than it will be, somebody not. So don't think for a second you don't deserve referrals, but please recognize you're not owed them and you have to be willing to do some work.
I love that. That was fire. Man, didn't you say that you're the Beyonce of referrals?
That is what you said. Yes, I remember you said it. I did not tell you that at all.
No, you did not. I'll take full ownership of that statement because I'm right. But okay, I need one more bonus question. Are you up for it?
Yeah.
I want you to dig deep on this. It's your productivity coaching hat. All right. Because this is such a win. But I'm working with a lot of CEOs, and it's the thing of they're constantly busy, right? And being so afraid to add one more thing to your schedule. What's one piece of advice from the productivity perspective?
Oh, wow. Okay. You keep asking me these questions that don't have like simple and easy, here's the only thing you got to do answers. But, let me just give you from my perspective now. I've changed how I work with my clients over time, more time than I care to admit. I'm actually going to do a podcast episode on it coming up on my podcast, Roadmap to Referrals, and always constantly seeking for the way my clients do their best work and get their best results while I get to show up in a way that works for me. So I have made significant model changes, figuring things out. And I will be honest with you, when I figured out the right model of how to deliver the work that I do and how to show up for my clients while having the boundaries that I want, everything became easier. All of the meetings and all of the crazy schedules and the, trying to like have the kids in the back while I'm trying to take a phone call, like all of the things that I felt like I'll never get through the to-do list. There's 13,000 things on the to-do list. All the things became easier when I figured out that it was not an easy process. It took me 10 years to get here. I probably should have been smarter and got here sooner. But I truly think if you feel like you're burning the candle at both ends, the best thing you can do is shrink the container of time that you allow yourself to work in and then figure out what can stay and what can go while you're making sure you're being as profitable as you want to be while also getting your clients the best results possible. That is not that's not a productivity hack. That is a process in and of itself, but it has made all the difference with me. I've actually, now that I moved into my group coaching program and I'm seeing the success my clients are having, I remember I was probably like 4 months into it and I had a panic attack and called my best business buddy. And I was like, I'm so bored. I don't know what to do. She was like, yeah, you basically worked yourself down to like 5 hours a week. I'm like, what do I do? And she was like, you'll figure it out. And then of course I made myself busy again. And then I was like, wait, no, that's not what I want. That's what I want. So yeah, I mean, I just think that everything is a process that you have to decide you want, and everything takes work. And it really comes down to how hard are you willing to work for it.
Thank you for that. You are truly an impressive human. And I'm saying that even though there's also an underlying theme to everything you're saying. Put in the work. And it's building processes. It's building consistency. It's actually, you didn't just say you have 18 strategies, but you said you don't learn them all on day one. And so it is actually, it's so good to listen to us, banter and go on about all the things. But in all actuality, it also takes showing up to do the process. So words of wisdom. Thank you so much. Full sincerity on that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure. I loved being here and hanging with you.
Yeah, anytime. Call me anytime. Like I'm kind of fangirling. I have to go. So if you had to leave our listeners and viewers with how to contact you, they're hyped up right now. How do they reach out?
Yep. So, because I'm a glutton for punishment, you can find me on some of the social media channels like LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for my name. But home base, my website, is typically the best place to start because there you can find everything you need, whether it's resources, whether it's how to order my book, or of course, my podcast, Roadmap to Referrals. Just go to StaceyBrownRandall.com. I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes because everybody spells Stacey wrong. It does have an E, but yeah, just check out the website. We've got the information. I mean, I got a book out. If you like to read, I got a podcast. Just start absorbing the information. Don't worry. We'll guide you through how to take the next step if and when the time is right.
I love it. Thank you again. And to all our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to the Jada Willis Experience. Oh, we got so much more in store. But if this episode resonated with you at all, like and share it with someone else. Let's do a little follow action. I may be a little weird, but this girl, Stacey, she's legit. Make sure you check out everything that she is sharing. It's in the notes. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.